Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. It's June 12th. Can you believe it? Today, I'm going to come on shortly just to talk about some updates from the tea industry in Japan as well as in China, Chaozhou, China to be specific. So I'm just going to get right into it. I'm just going to be on here shortly. A couple hours late, I had a tasting with a new coffee shop in town. And that kind of went a little long, but that's okay. It's Friday, it's the weekend, we can do what we like. I really like these rainbows here, it's very nice. I'm gonna jump right in and talk about Japan. Our friend Ricardo from My Japanese Green Tea, it's a blog, a tea education blog about Japanese tea culture. He posted a very interesting graphic yesterday that totally, reiterates all the things that we've been saying for years and years and years about the Japanese tea industry that always shocks people that it's a very dire situation for the Japanese tea farmers. The first flush of Japan is completely cleared, and we see the production numbers and what happened. And as you remember, throughout this entire pandemic, Japan had a pretty open policy about social distancing and the country staying open. So I would say of all the countries, they had the most open situation. So you would expect uh, less change to the industry. Probably the biggest thing that happened for Japan was in regards to their post. So the Japan Post system pretty much put on hold for a few months. Now it's been opened, and now things are moving pretty freely around in logistics, but they had put a hold for a couple of months on any of the more economic shipping solutions. So the only shipping solution that would have, you know, moved at a decent rate was the these express services. So very costly shipping during the time, which could have put some influence on the industry. So the numbers are out now, and we see that there's been this is just for Shizuoka Prefecture, their production numbers, which is a good representation of the entire industry. Shizuoka is the largest production area in Japan. So it's down 15 to 20%, and that's like quantity produced. There's several reasons to that. There has, been some difficult weather that had some influence on that, but mostly it has to do with, the pandemic. Either, not able to go to work or potentially, forecasts about the market. There's probably several different reasons why that had happened. So I'm just going to show a graphic here on the computer. This is all in Japanese language. Don't worry about that. So the numbers on the left is production numbers. So that's production quantities. And then the numbers on the right are the price. So this is price per kilo of tea. And this market price is like a commodity price in Japan. They do have somewhat of a commodity system for the tea industry, actually for the entire agriculture industry. So Japan is very unique in how agriculture products are marketed and distributed. So legally, and this has been since World War II, a farmer in Japan cannot directly market their products into the market legally. Of course, a lot of that has changed now, and you do of course see farmers selling directly into the market, but for the longest time it was illegal for a farmer to sell their product directly into the market, and they had to sell their product to an organization called Japan Agriculture. Japan Agriculture is a government bureaucracy, and 60 years ago when this organization was first formed, they had the very important role of aggregating all the supply chain and all the marketing, and it was a necessary thing. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have as much prevalent, widespread education about information exchange. And so those centralized systems, as with our entire global industry of everything, it was necessary to have that centralized aggregation of marketing and of business and of cash flow and all of those things that make up industry and how industry happens. So this is like a 60-year-old organization, ran exactly how it was run 60 years ago. So, definitely an outdated system at this point. And in addition to outdated system, as is the case with a lot of outdated systems, a corrupt one. And potentially not intentionally corrupt, but I think that there are several parties that have become very comfortable in the privileges that a centralized organization like this provides. And these are the same privileges that are provided to the Indian tea traders and the Kenyan tea traders that work with these centralized auction houses that may or may not be government control and government regulated. But in these centralized auction houses or centralized marketing mechanisms, similar to Japan agriculture, there's a lot of power that lies within that centralization. And when the buyers involved in that discover that, they can create a lot of damage to the industry and a lot of privilege for themselves. And I have a story of hearing this privilege directly from somebody that unintentionally knew about his privilege and about all these things. So I'll share that story now. So this was in 2014. We were in Fukuoka area in Japan, so that's like southern part of the main island, and we were in the town of Yame, which is like a very famous, ancient. I really love these rainbows on Instagram. So cool. A really famous kind of old town in Fukuoka that has preserved a lot of its heritage, and we came across a tea house, an incredible tea house, like so quaint, so covered in dust, and you could see its age and feel its age and its energy inside this tea house. But there was a young man running it. He had acquired it from his father and was carrying on the tradition. And very nice person. We had a great time getting to know each other, sharing our love of tea with each other, and he was thoroughly fascinated with my work and what I was doing. And at that time, I was at the tail end of the Amazing Tea Race, so I had just been spending 2 months all throughout Asia. Hi, Paul. I'm guessing it's you, Paul. Good to see you, Just Tea. And so he was just asking me lots of questions, and I just finished traveling all throughout the tea lands of Asia, and he asked me, like, are you doing business? I said, yeah. Well, I'm trying to create a new way of business. I'm not buying a whole bunch of tea while I'm here. I'm just trying to create some business and a new way of business of more transparency and more connection to the farmer and more empowerment to the farmer. And he totally understood all those things. He knew about the plight of the farmer, and he knew the struggles of a farmer to keep producing their tea because, the market price is so difficult for them. And I said, yeah, I'm building this new system. And so, tea buyers all over the world can connect directly with the farmer and buy the tea from them, and everybody can be happy with the financial transaction. And he says, oh, I'm part of this club. He called it a club. And it's great. And I said, okay, what's this club? And he was like, oh, it's kind of like your business, but we're a network of the buyers, and we get to come all together, and we get to buy the tea together. And when we do it like that, we get the price that we want. And I was like, head hanging low, like, yeah, that thing you're talking about is exactly what I'm trying to fight. because the farmer needs a higher price. Like, I understand the value of you getting the price that you want for the tea you're buying, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done to empower the farmers. And I guess, by the end of that conversation, we had agreed to disagree, essentially, which is fine. But it was like, I tell that story because that story is exactly that privilege that I'm talking about, that buyers have. And, Just Tea Kenya, the same thing happens in Kenya with the auction houses. So when you aggregate all of that buying power together, it gives too much power to the buyers where they get to control the price. So this happens especially in India, Kenya, and then it works across the board because in an international commodity system, it's like everybody's playing on the same fields together. So no matter where you're growing and producing your tea, you almost have to play in the same pricing fields. And these aggregations of power in the buying space has really caused a lot of damage to the market price of tea. So I'll show this graphic again of the amount of production compared to the price of tea. And this graph is going from 2012 until 2020 here. So this is this year's numbers. You see on both sides, there's actually a pretty significant drop. Not only in the amount of production, that's understandable. More farms are going wild, more families are abandoning their tea farming operations. So that makes sense. Like for production, so the output numbers is this green. It's these green bars here. And so, it's had some decrease and some increase and whatnot. And then the pink here is the price. And you definitely see a consistent decrease in price. And this is interesting for me because the dates here start in 2012, which is actually the last time I looked at these numbers. When I first started TLET, when I first started researching all of these systems, I had looked at these numbers and frankly, they made me sick. So I didn't want to continue looking at them, but thank you to Ricardo from My Japanese Green Tea for bringing this graphic. And there's a whole link here too with an article, but this graphic is enough to see everything. The price has gone down. In 2012 when I was researching this, I had seen that the price had actually stayed pretty steady for the past 30 years. 30 years. The price of tea in the market in Japan has not increased in those 30 years, and now we see over the past 8 years, it's actually decreasing. And so now it's at it started in 2012 at about 2,000 yen, and now it's at 1,500 yen. So, that's pretty drastic. That's like, I don't know why my math is like, it's like a quarter. Really? No. Yeah. That's like a 25% decrease in price. And we all know how inflation works. The cost of production has done nothing but go up. There's nothing we can do to fight that. Cost of resources, cost of water, cost of fertilizers, cost of labor. It's so crazy, Paul. And this is Japan. And people always think of Japan as like it's a developed, it's a technology and a financial powerhouse, which is totally true in the cities. But tea production is happening in the countryside, and it's oftentimes forgotten. And, additionally in the article, it's written that a lot of farmers are contemplating quitting, and it makes sense, The cost of living is high. Yeah, everything is high. So it's a struggle, and it's sad for us tea lovers to have to think about that. And how do we protect that? How do we control that? There's really nothing in our power to do that, because these numbers here that we're talking about are like completely out of our hands. It's like it's being controlled, and it is benefiting a system that we are connected to. We are consumers of it, but we have no power in it. These are like the Coca-Colas and the Kraft Foods of the world. These are extremely powerful networked organizations that are enjoying this privilege that I was talking about earlier. So Not so much great news I have to share today. And, this graphic just totally reiterates exactly what, I've been saying for years about Japanese tea. There is some good news. Like if you're buying your tea directly from a farmer, and that doesn't happen too often in Japan, because in Japan there is a huge language barrier, even though most Japanese people study, English through most of their education system. There's not a whole lot of confidence, not just in like language fluency, but just confidence and connectivity. They have the technology to connect, but there's not a whole lot of interaction happening from Japanese tea farmers and the international tea drinking community. Of course, the teas that we distribute for Japanese tea farmers, those are beneficial, and you can be assured that those economic systems are benefiting for the good. But what's causing this issue with the pricing issues is not the ceremonial grade matcha. It's not high quality kukicha. It is like very standard Yabukita sencha that is exclusively going to go into ready to drink. And so this is, a big cultural shift of Japanese tea culture over the past 30 years, 30, 40 years, since that price has stagnated, since those, powerful buyers, which include companies like Coca-Cola, maybe not Coca-Cola, but, Itoen or Sapporo or Kirin or like these big beverage companies. They are the ones that have popularized the ready-to-drink tea, and so that's actually become the tea culture in Japan. A young Japanese person, wouldn't be practicing, some type of tea brewing and tea enjoyment practice. Their idea of tea is convenient. It's cold, it's refreshing, it's in a vending machine outside of every train station that you go out of that you can, put your money in and you can enjoy it. And these ready-to-drink teas are always going to be competing against the commodity ready-to-drink soft drink industry, which includes Coca-Cola. And, the consumer's perception of those types of products is, I hate to use the word cheap because that's such a bad way to describe it, but it's low value. It's easy, it's convenient, it's commodity, it's, low price, low value. And so these producers that are sourcing for that market competition are also up against, a big challenge. Yeah, Miles, I'd love to hear about last time you were in Japan and what you were exposed to. I mean, I'm sure if you've been to Japan, you know what I'm talking about with this tea culture. And so it's that industry that is really affecting this pricing issue that's happening right now. And it's really sad because what it results in, and what I have seen so many times before when I lived in rural Japan and saw the realities of tea production, of autonomous small grower tea production, it is 75-year-old grandma and grandpa hunched over in the field, just doing it out of the love of their heritage and dying doing it. And encouraging their children and their grandchildren to go to the cities, not get stuck into this system while the grandparents are, eating into their pensions. Those are meant to be years of enjoyment and years of relaxation. Instead, they're years of stress. And then having to deal with this bullshit. You produce some product and it costs a certain amount for you to produce it. You take it to market and they're like, oh, you deserve 25% less money for your tea this year just because man, I couldn't imagine that kind of life. So yeah, that is the sad news of today. And thank you to Ricardo for bringing this graphic to our attention. And I'm going to give him one more shout out. It's Ricardo from myjapanesegreentea.com. Very knowledgeable on Japanese tea culture, Japanese tea, and he runs a podcast. He's a very friendly, entertaining guy. So if you're not following him already, please go find him. He is on all the channels. you will be able to find it. My Japanese green tea. Um, so yeah, you said last time you went to Japan, the supplier told you that the youth is losing interest in tea. Tea culture is dying. Of course, yeah, definitely. Um, and but there's some opportunity for that revitalization of culture, and you know who's gonna do it, who's gonna lead that revolution and that renovation is like hipsters in America that are popularizing Japanese tea culture. You know, using the Kyushu to brew their tea, drinking real ceremonial grade matcha, you know, not just enjoying matcha as a novelty like bakery item. And so as those trends continue to become more popular here, it will cycle back, you know, to Japan. And that's how Japan's culture has been operating since World War II is this like fetishes. I'm terrible at this word, but it's such a good word. Fetishization of American culture. Um, and so whatever is cool here, you know, cycles back being cool there, which is kind of funny because it works in the opposite way here. You know, we kind of fetishize Japanese culture, so it's interesting how that all works out. But yeah, moving on. That's what's going on in Japan. It's a bleak thing. Drink good matcha. Drink expensive matcha, or what you call expensive matcha, high value matcha, because that does support good agriculture. It does support farmers, and does support the longevity of Japanese tea culture. Because yes, it is under great risk of loss. And I know we always talk about Chinese tea culture being very long established, which is totally true. But oh, Bitcoin, quiet. Hold on one second. I'll be right back. I'm actually in the middle of a stream now. Cool. Thanks, man. Yeah. Bitcoin, get in. Come on. Bitcoin, come on. Hey, have a good weekend. I'm back. So, yeah, Japanese culture, we gotta love it. Oh, yeah, that's what I was saying. You know, Chinese tea culture is, you know, long established, thousands of years, but Japanese tea culture is actually the longest running. You know, so there's some significance to that. That's 1,100 years of heritage. You know, much longer than Chinese tea culture. Chinese tea culture has had several breaks, you know, one most recently within the past 100 years that has completely just kind of caused a rift in the history of that heritage. But in Japan, it has been ongoing. You know, it's definitely gone through waves of popularization and decline and incline and decline. The one good thing, if you are a ceramics enthusiast, now is a good time to collect extremely high value, you know, Japanese chado ceramics, because you know with the depopularization of it, the demand being down causes the prices to go down as well. So. Affordable time to be collecting, you know, collectible, historic wares, Japanese tea wares, specifically like chado, like matcha bowls and whatnot. So then the other update I wanted to give is kind of better news. Coming from Chaozhou in China, in Guangdong, very close to Hong Kong, and also the home of incredible tea artisanship, incredible tea as well, oolong tea. So that's where Phoenix Mountain and their beautiful Dansong oolongs are, you know, the culture and the business of them are. Even though Dansong tea, like especially like the really higher echelon of quality of Dansang tea is coming from, the top of Wudong, in Wudong village at the top of the mountain. Chaozhou City is a little bit of a distance away, but that entire area, the Phoenix Mountain area, not just Wudong, is a just an amazing place for tea production. And not to say that all of the tea coming from that place is good or ethical. There, when I visited there, I was very sad to see a lot of the monoculture, kind of destruction of the biodiversity in the mountainous area there. And then also the use of chemicals and all of those things. But yeah. So the update from there is kind of a feel-good update. But I thought it was kind of interesting that they are making the Provincial Modern Agricultural Industrial Park for Dansang tea. And that's going to be in Chaozhou City. There has been an influx of tourism there. And it's actually quite a small town. It's a very traditional, quiet, just comfortable place with incredible food. I would say Chaozhou food is probably my favorite of China. Very sweet, very glutinous, and very just very casual. The street food there is very comfortable. And it stays open till 2 or 4 in the morning. It's a very casual, comfortable culture that is, very attractive for just hanging out and drinking tea and talking story. So any kind of culture like that or place that encourages that type of behavior is a good place for me. So in addition to this agricultural industrial park, there's going to be a tea trading market, a tea cultural space that will have other functions such as intangible cultural heritage inheritance, skills training for Gengfu tea. So Chaozhou is actually the birthplace of Gengfu cha, I would believe is the first specified process of Gengfu cha. Now the term and the ideology of Gengfu cha that many of us know and practice now is something that's kind of adopted and evolved in Taipei, really. Gengfu cha as an ideology, Gengfu cha as a lifestyle, and just a way to enjoy tea is something. Oh, hi, Joe. So yeah, Joe had a question. I'm sorry I missed your question earlier. You had asked about those numbers that I shared. Is this measured based on the industry as a whole, the specialty tea farms, commodity-based farms? So those numbers were just from Shizuoka Prefecture, and that is, I don't know if it's specialty or commodity or if it's everything. I think most likely it's the commodity-based farms, which is all of them. Shizuoka is almost all commodity-based farms. There's very few, small-scale artisanal farms. And even the small-scale farms that are selling to JA, they're autonomous small farms that own their own farms and produce their own tea. But as soon as they take that tea to JA, which legally they're supposed to take 100% of their tea to JA to sell it, it becomes a commodity. So in India, when we think of commodity tea, we think of these large, expansive plantations, which actually those do exist in Shizuoka. There are very large, expansive fields. There's even larger ones in Kagoshima. So that's why I'm very skeptical of Kagoshima tea when I hear about it or someone says, oh, this is great Kagoshima tea. It's usually coming from a very large-scale, commodity-based production system. But JA itself will take an artisanal product, a single origin artisanal beautiful product, and turn it into a commodity immediately. So that's the problem with JA, and there are so many powerful people and even non-powerful people like that vendor in Yame. I told that story, that small tea shop owner. There are so many people that are benefiting from the privilege of what JA does for them as far as pricing and efficiency and logistics and all of that it's going to be really hard to remove that system and to, kind of demonize that system and make change. So, you know, my idea is just pave our own path, and so that's what we're doing. And thanks for being a part of that initiative to create our own path and our own future for this. So I hope that answers your question, Joe. Um, and good to see you too. It has been a while. I'm missing you, man. We'll have to catch up sometime. So, yeah, I was talking about Gung Fu Cha in Taipei and how that term has kind of evolved from the Chaozhou Gung Fu Cha is, even though it's not a ceremony, there is a process. There is like a prescribed process. See, you're pointing the way, just being hopeful that the small volume farms are being valued. It's definitely gonna die. Yeah. It's definitely gonna die. Um, and our friend Kuni-san in Shizuoka, the matcha that we work with, and part of the virtual tea festival, if you remember, the last presentation was from Japan, that village where they are creating that whole village for organic matcha production. Um, that story is the new path. And if you find stories like that to support, we can, keep the culture of Japanese tea alive. Now, as far as like the rest of the industry, like this commodity industry that's not very valued and having a fucking 25% reduction in price in the past 8 years, what the fuck? Anyway, sorry, I'm a little impassioned by that. Yeah, that's gonna die. I mean, at least in the way it is now, it has to die. Either the farmers are gonna literally die, which they're doing, like they're old and they're just making tea until they die, and their kids and their grandkids are like, we're not into it. We're gonna like stay in the cities. We're gonna stay with our tech jobs. Like we're more comfortable this way, and that's totally understandable and totally dignified, and they're right to that. Now the industry, the processed industry, so the ready to drink industry, that's not going anywhere. We're always going to have like a demand for convenience and for ready to drink, refreshing, tea beverages. And so that industry will continue to go. That industry will continue to demand its low prices and will continue to find, corrupt systems that they can control and leverage their power to control the pricing. They'll just go to different places and they'll support different production origins. And we're already seeing that. Japan, so Itoen, that is like the first company that popularized ready to drink unsweetened green tea in Japan. There's a ton of other companies now, but Itoen is the first, and they're the largest, and they're international. They're everywhere. And I used to work for them. So I can speak on this because I have personal information, or experience, not information, I should say experience, because I don't even know if the information that I received from that experience is, whatever. But I just have my own experience of, seeing that they they created their whole industry in Australia. We've all heard of Australian grown tea. It's a thing. It was made by Itoen. Itoen was the main power that went to Australia, brought the cultivars from Japan, and started investing and developing an industry there. Now, there is like a specialty industry in Australia. You are seeing that more and more. Very good quality teas coming from Australia, but there's also like a commodity industry that was built for the ready to drink industry, production industry. Itoen's already done it. They did it. They did that project like 20 years ago now. That's an old project when they started making the industry in Australia, and it was all kind of under the radar because they weren't trying to sell Australian tea. They were trying to sell oyocha. They were trying to sell their unsweetened tea in the bottle. So, and who knows where else they've gone now. I know when I was leaving Itoen, actually not when I'm leaving. This was maybe 3 years ago. I ran into my old boss, and he told me, "Hi, Gabby. I've been drinking a lot of tea today. I did a tasting with the coffee shop, so I have a lot of tea. I have nothing in my gaiwan right now. I'm, just on a impassioned tangent right now about the Japanese tea industry. But I'll get brewing some tea again. I don't know if I need it. My body's like all rushed right now. I just drank a bunch with a coffee shop tasting earlier. Um, so yeah, when I met with my old boss a couple of years ago, he told me he was actually exploring a tea industry in the States, a big development project, not just a specialty small scale, a couple acre specialty lot, like that. So they're already planning and they're already building up the supply chains to support their business without necessarily trying to fix this issue in Japan itself. Um, so yeah, thank you with your patience with my tangent on that. I hope the information has been useful for you. Um, so back to the good news. Gongfu tea in Chaozhou, China is awesome. And it's not a ceremony. It is, a way of life. Casual hospitality, happiness, community, and good tea. But a lot of the gung fu cha that we practice and know about and talk about is kind of that evolved term that popularized the lifestyle of like hanging out at a tea house. This was all, kind of a campaign by marketers in Taipei that wanted to popularize the activity of hanging out at a tea house. And so thank goodness for that, because Gung Fu Cha is awesome. It is so awesome. And it is such a great way to bring the community together, the tea community together, and giving an identity to the tea community about what is it the heck that we're doing here. We're not just trying to be tea snobs and trying to learn all about tea and drink all of the tea. We're practicing gung fu. We're trying to better ourselves. We're trying to get new skills, and ultimately we're trying to be incredible hosts for our guests. So it's a good thing. And Chaozhou is a very good place to experience that lifestyle. And it is deeply rooted in their culture and their food. Like I said, you can just be walking the street, very safe place. You can just be walking the street at 2 o'clock in the morning and you'll see street vendors making bowls of noodle soup and like just some incredible, amazing food. And then you go in the next building over, and there's like 3 guys sitting outside the door drinking tea together. And if you want, you could go introduce yourself and try to enter their space and share some experience with them. And more than likely, they're gonna welcome you, because that's gung fu, that's tea. So please visit Chaozhou if you have the chance. If you ever go to China. I don't encourage you to try to go to Chaozhou to start a dancong tea business, because it is a very interesting business. Especially when it comes to the very high quality tea, the really expensive real dancong. So dancong means single bush, and so sometimes people, as they get into this business or they start studying dancong tea, they assume that any tea that says dancong on it is coming, it's harvested from one bush, and that's usually not the truth. It is the truth in some cases, and you better believe that those teas are very expensive. If the tea is not costing you as a consumer, if the tea is not costing you anything less than $2 a gram, it is most definitely not dancong. It is not the authentic thing. And nothing wrong with other what I like to call Phoenix Mountain oolongs. They can be good, but the real dancong is coming specifically from the Wudong village area, which when you're there, you really get to see how small that growth space is. I don't know. I could probably research it and find out exactly how many acres of tea are grown and processed into authentic dancong. But just to give you a point of reference, whenever I went and with the friends that I was with, they are, multi-generational tea farmers that, own patches of land in the Wudong area, as well as patches of land lower down the mountain where the tea is, less value and not the authentic dansang. But when they took me to Wudong Village and showed me their tea patches, they're called patches, and probably the most idea of patches I've seen, because even in Yunnan, they'll call their tea areas patches as well. Hi, good to see you. But in Wudong Village, a patch could be literally just like a space of area on, like a terraced mountainside that has like 4 bushes on it. And they're like, this is our patch. Um, and that's all they need. The tea is so high valued and so awesome that 4 bushes is more than enough to make what they need to make. And so there's all these other patches all around, but the space itself is not that large, and the spacing of the trees is actually very wide. Um, so, but as you go lower down the mountain, closer to Chaozhou, you'll start to see more of this more compact growth. The bushes are smaller, and you can tell that the value of the tea that comes from that is much lower. In this article, it says that there are, it said how many acres are actually in the Chaozhou Dansang tea growing area. 70,000 mu, which is 4,666.7. That 0.7 is important in that number. Hectares, which is maybe like close to 10,000. Wait, let me get the exact number for us because I like to be exact. The acreage on that. That's 11,500 acres. That's a lot. I would say my guess of like the real Dansang, like that space is probably closer to like 20 acres. That's a high estimate. And so of this 11,500 acres, only like 20 of those are actually like the authentic Dansang. The rest are more in the line of like commodity production. So there is a lot of commodity Phoenix Mountain oolongs being produced, and Dansang tea, like the real one, that was the second tea in my life that when I drank it, it like changed my whole perspective and changed my whole life around tea of like, whoa, tea actually can be unique. The first one that did that for me was Gyokuro, shaded green tea from Yame, from from Yame, where the last story I told. And then, when I went to Chaozhou, and the first cup of Dansang that was given to me, and of course every other cup that I had was also life changing, but that first one was like, whoa, okay, now I get it. Now I get why everybody talks about these Phoenix Mountain oolongs being so good, because before that point, I had been served several different Phoenix Mountain oolongs, and none of them ever impressed me. At every tea shop, even the fanciest tea shops in San Francisco that I went to, the owners, I meet with them and they'd be so proud. Oh, we have our new Phoenix Mountain Oolong, you gotta try it. And I was like, yeah, this is not doing it for me. And the reason why is because those Phoenix Mountain Oolongs are coming from like the lower points on the mountain where, the DNA of the trees are not as pure. They say first generation, second generation is what you consider true Dansang. First generation is like the bomb. Like, I don't even think I've ever even gotten to taste it. People have said they've poured it for me, and then I have other friends with me elbow and say, no, this is not the real thing. They would never serve you the real thing. The first generation being like from the tea king, from the original mother bush, the big tree, and they harvest that, and they harvest and make batches of tea, but it's like all already exclusively reserved for either political leaders or like tribute. It's not It's not something that you'll go into a tea shop in Beijing and they're gonna say, "Oh yeah, I got this Dansong tea from the Tea King for $1 a gram." That's not true. Um, so anyway, Dansong tea is amazing, but there's a lot of not real Dansong, and maybe it could be still good. I definitely have had Phoenix Mountain Oolong that was not good, that had a bad energy to it, and I wouldn't drink it again. And when the first time I went and we drove up the mountain to Wudong, as we passed, all the lower elevation tea plantations, saw a lot of workers with chemical backpacks. A lot, actually. And this was during the spring when I went, so it wasn't even like late summer. Late summer is, or mid to late summer is when you see a lot of chemical use, especially for pesticides. Um, this was in the springtime, and they were already using, chemicals to assist in things. So, yeah. So I think that's it. I'll just give a little quote from this. It says the tea industry in Fenghuang Town. So Fenghuang Town is Phoenix. That's Phoenix. Fenghuang Shan is Phoenix Mountain. Apart from pursuing quality development, consolidating and improving the primary industry shall also make for integrated development by connecting with the secondary and tertiary industries. And that's coming from the Secretary of the Party Committee of Fenghuang Town, confidently introducing that by creating a unique town featured with tea and tourism, the secondary and tertiary industries will also be improved. Joe, I did not change the schedule. I'm just a few hours late. I was like 3 hours late today. I had a tasting with the coffee shop that went a little long, and it's also Friday, so I can do whatever I want. It's Friday. I can party. But I did stop doing weekends, so Saturday and Sunday I am relaxing and enjoying my time. So not doing the streams. But I will start up again on Monday at 2 p.m. with Dignified Hospitality. I don't know who will be my guest. I want to bring cooks. I want to talk about that, because I've talked with service staff, I've talked with supply chain vendors, and considered the consumer, and like what kind of dignity the foodie or the consumer deserves and all of it. But I think I'd like to talk to chefs or even cooks, not just the chefs, not just the, because I feel like in the restaurant industry, the chef is already pretty dignified. Like the, kind of the stigma around being a chef is already pretty sexy. But Abercrete, hey, Sweet 16, what's up, man? It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. That is Abercrete. Abercrete. 16-year-old, maybe you're 17 now. You're definitely 17 now. 17-year-old tea maker from Nepal joining us on Instagram. That's awesome. Much love, Abercrete. I hope everything is beautiful and jazzberry. I bet it is. It always is. It's heaven there. Hi. Your tea is popular. I've sold out of it. Everybody liked it. I need more. I gotta talk to you about getting more tea. Like Small Kind, Nepalese tea celebrity, watching us on Instagram. Enjoying the forest in your free time. Lucky you, Joe. I guess the weather is nice there now. Yeah, I'm happy that you're working, and I'm very happy that you're enjoying the forest. Um, Sorry you can't join our virtual tastings, the Taste of People's Tea. I hope you're getting those videos and links. Those are actually cool. I figured you probably did that just so that you could see what we're up to and how it's being executed. So I hope it helps you and inspires you to do some cool work like that, because it's fun. It is fun. So just to close out that article, I like how this is read. It says tea gardens are turned into parks and farmers become investors. How cool is that? I like that. In this way, ecology is well protected, farmers' income increased, and rural characteristic industries revitalized. Yeah, I like that. Tea gardens are turned into parks and farmers become investors. That's a pretty dignified. That's a pretty dignified line. I like that. Abercrombie, take note. Take note. You should get a T-shirt that says that. Tea gardens are turned into parks and farmers become investors. Well, that's it. It's Friday. I'm late. I've cursed a whole lot in this video. So I think it's time for me to go. Unless there's any other questions or anybody wants to drop in and chat with me, you're welcome to do so. I'd be happy to do that. Abercrombie, do you want to come on? You can turn your camera on. We could talk live. That'd be so cool. It'd be so good to see you. I'm sure you gotta do your hair. You gotta make yourself look presentable. Abercrombie's like a borderline model. He's gonna hate I said that. Anyway. We should catch up, Joe. I'd like to catch up with you, see how everything is going. See how things are going in your town, too, with like the reopenings and all of that. It's been a bit of a mess here. We've been open here in Nevada for almost a month now. Yeah, almost a month. I just went to go eat my first meal out yesterday, though. And even that felt like a big deal. Had Peruvian ceviche. And yeah, that was good. Yeah, it's interesting. So, like, sales of tea and coffee have not immediately picked up since everything has reopened. So I'd be interested to see how things have been working for you and all of your wholesale partners. Regardless, things are moving still. You know, life is still going on. And happiness can still be found. We might have to work a little harder to see that perspective. It's not right in front of our faces these days, but you can still find it. Cool, guys. Well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna start my weekend. I'm gonna have some fun, as much fun as I can have by myself with Bitcoin. But I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for just being and being here. And I hope that we can continue to be together. I'll continue putting the effort out. I'll do it. I have no problem doing it. Much love to you all. Thanks for listening to all of my rants. Hi, Heidi. Thank you for saying hello. So this is evening. I'm in the evening now. Maybe I should start staggering some of my live streams so that some of them I do earlier and some of them I do now, because it seems that like I had a different audience today, which is cool. Very cool. I love having you guys here, and I'm always happy to share information. You're great, Heidi. You're so great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you very much. All right. Much love. Pure aloha. Bless.